Now in our 6th year, this is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network. Talk like you've never heard it before.
Yes, live from Harlem in New York, it's the Ramble with me. I'm Alex Bennett, and we're here until midnight tonight on the East Coast of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Stephen Kravitz. He is now in my time zone, which is weird because all the other people I call are in different time zones, and I'm always used to like writing them and saying, "Well, call me at 10 o'clock." You know,
Right.
Call me at 11 o'clock, whatever. But you're in the same time zone now.
I'm now in Eastern Standard Time.
Did you have any kind of problem adjusting to the time zone?
For a while, a couple of days it was a little rough, but you know, I've been traveling for the last, 38 years, so the plane was virtually empty.
Oh, good. I've heard that from people.
Yes,
to get on a plane. Yeah.
I can't recommend Spirit Airlines to anybody. Talk about cut costs. The chair didn't even recline, so I couldn't even sleep. You know what I mean? I couldn't even lean back in the chair.
Are you sure it wasn't just your chair that was bad?
Thank you. Point that out. Like I don't have enough issues.
Oh, I mean, because I've gotten on planes and the chair won't go back, and it's not me. It's my chair. It's not all the chairs in the plane.
Well, I had a row to myself, so I was able to lift up the armrest and lay down, and so I slept for a couple hours.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Spirit Airlines, with only you on the plane, I would say they're not going to be in business much longer.
No, probably not. Except, to move my stuff in my car cost me over $6,000, right?
Yeah.
And the airplane ticket cost $37.99.
What? Oh, $37.99. I thought you meant $3,799.
No.
You know, it used to be, it's not that way anymore, but it used to be when I first moved out to New York. I bought a round-trip ticket, not because I was planning on going back to San Francisco, but because in those days you had to buy a round-trip ticket was cheaper than a one-way ticket.
Right, now a one-way ticket is cheaper than a round trip.
Yeah. And then I held on to the other way for a couple of years and used it later on to go back and see people, you know.
There you go.
But then I had to buy another round trip ticket. You know, it was a real mess. So I'm watching on Showtime a series on the Comedy Store.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
How is it?
I found it very good. Steve Bender did it. Mike Bender.
Mike Bender.
Bender or Bender? Mike
Bender.
Yeah. And the first episode was about the beginnings of it and the early days, Leno, Letterman, you know, and so on. And they said that the biggest person there at the time really was J.J. Walker.
Oh yeah. Wasn't he was the first one to get a series?
Yeah. Well, you know how my life intersected with him.
No.
I worked at WMCA in New York.
Okay.
And we had, of course, board operators, engineers, we called them at the time. And he was one of them. And he was my engineer for my Saturday night shows. Yeah. And he kept saying to me, "Hey, I'm doing a set down at the comic strip or whatever was the club that was a big club at the time. And will you come down?" And I never wanted to go down because I was afraid he was going to be so bad that when he would ask me, "How did I do?" it would be awkward. So I never went. And all of a sudden, he becomes this sensation. And last night in this documentary on the Comedy Store, they said that he really opened the door for a lot of people. I mean, he was using Leno and Letterman as his writers.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what Jimmy was doing back then, and he became huge.
Yes. Dynamite, right?
Yep.
Wasn't he the Dynamite guy?
Yeah, but there's never any. There was never any explanation of what the hell happened to his career.
I think he got locked into the Dynamite guy, and he couldn't get out of it.
Because his act was pretty funny. He was not an unfunny comic, and but they had him on this documentary, and then they talked about the next one is going to have Kinnison in it, and so on, But this was the very beginnings, and I thought of you because you were down there.
Sure.
You worked the Comedy Store. You worked with Mitzi.
Oh, Mitzi was like my adopted mother.
Yeah.
Mitzi took good care of me. Mitzi paid for a lot of rehabs for me.
Well, let's talk about Mitzi Shore for a second. She ran the Comedy Store. If the name sounds familiar, she's Pauly Shore's mother.
Right.
That's
right.
That's the one thing we'll hold against her. Okay.
Well,
anyway,
Pauly's a nice kid.
I know Pauly. Listen, I people always used to kid Pauly, and I would always defend him because when I met him, nicest guy in the world.
Yes. Yes. Nice kid.
Really nice kid.
Nice.
But but his act didn't hit me right. It was kind of whatever. But she had the Comedy Store. She owned it. In fact, it talked about the fact that she had her husband, Sammy Shore, who was a stand-up comic.
That's right. And she got the Comedy Store, I believe, in the divorce.
Well, here's what they said. She said, "I don't want any money. Just give me the club."
Right.
And so she didn't take any money. She took the club. Right. And he went, "Go ahead. This thing's a loser."
Right. And then it took off.
And she turned it into a success.
Oh, yeah. And she didn't have, not like the Improv has improvs all over the country. The Comedy Store was in Hollywood, period.
Yeah.
For a while, we had a room at the Dunes in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
I did 18 shows. Me and Sam, we did 18 shows at the Dunes and sold out all of them. We did 5 shows on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Let's just say by the time the 5th show, I was probably not really coherent.
Probably.
Yeah. And I believe I repeated the same joke 3 times in the same set.
Really?
Yeah. And I couldn't figure out why it didn't get a laugh because it was a really good joke.
That was good for your sobriety, hanging out with Sam.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But we had different tastes in drugs.
In drugs. What was his taste in drugs?
He liked cocaine.
Yeah. So he was basically just coke.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he tried, here's a story. He came over to my apartment one time, and he said, "I know what you're doing, and I want you to, hit me up and see how good it is." And I hit him up with a shot that was just about an OD shot, and it scared the hell out of him, and he never asked again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you were into heroin.
Yes. I was, as they say, what's it now? Not an opiate addict, what's the term they use now?
Opie.
Yeah, Opie.
You were Opie.
Yeah, that's right.
Here's a question, though, and please, if it's going to be a bad thing for you to have to deal with when you answer it, just tell me to go fuck myself, okay?
All right. I'll do that anyway.
I've never done heroin, and the reason I never did heroin is I knew I would probably like it. Because I had heard from everybody that ever did it that it was not a drug you hate.
Right.
And that you could very easily get addicted to. Now, let me also say that the truth about heroin is that you don't take one shot and then get addicted to it.
Right. No, you have to really dedicate yourself to get addicted.
It takes they say about 6 weeks of abuse to get a habit. Okay.
Right.
That's not any message for any of you out there to go out and say, "I think I'll suddenly try heroin for a week." Okay.
Right. Now,
all right.
That I would get re-addicted in 3 days.
Well, because you were already,
Yes.
into
and I told you the hospitals turned me on to morphine when I was in high school.
Oh, really?
And that's when my habit began.
You got morphine for what?
I broke my jaw in 5 places.
Oh, well, that would do it.
And the bone actually went through the cheek.
Mm-hmm. So it went morphine.
Right. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Morphine.
And so after you no longer were taking the morphine, did that suddenly make you want heroin, or was it several years?
I didn't want to get sick or anything, but you know, at that point, I was still a teenager, so I was able to get through it, and then I got really involved in my education for the next 7 years. So I didn't do any. It wasn't until I went back to San Francisco. When I got to San Francisco, I reintroduced myself to it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
So my question is, because I've never done it, is what is it about it that is so seductive?
Well, have you ever taken painkillers?
Yes.
Have you gotten a buzz off them?
Yep.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go. You nod out a little bit. You have these opiate dreams. Everything's fine. You know, You're good. In fact, the Surgeon General came out once and said she'd rather have kids do heroin than crack. Because heroin, once they get their fix, they don't bother anybody. They take a nap over in the corner. And crackheads, they take a hit and then they go out and kill their grandmother for more money.
Well, I mean, of all the drugs, you know, I mean, they kept talking about, there was a book I read once called The Heroin Myth. And what it did is it was a book about all the myths about heroin. You know, the thing that you one shot and you're addicted for life, you know, and things like that. And it basically said that of all the drugs that you could do, it
does the least harm to your internals.
Yes, and the reason being that it is, and here's the problem with heroin, okay, is that your body produces a heroin-like substance. It's
That's
called,
right.
it's
Your body produces opiates.
Endorphins, it's called.
Right.
And so what happens with heroin is when you take heroin, your body turns off your endorphin-producing system because it says, I'm getting that already.
Right.
But then when you stop the heroin, it doesn't start producing the endorphins immediately, and it takes about a year to start producing endorphins again.
The first year is rough, Alex. The first year is rough.
Exactly, until your body starts producing its own endorphins. And now your body is, so, you know.
Right. I mean, I've been clean for over 15 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
And that's a chunk of time, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you still Jones for it ever?
No.
Good.
I was lucky. When I came into the rooms, I was ready. I mean, I didn't go to rehab or anything. I kicked cold turkey in Narcotics Anonymous.
Really?
Yep. And that's I had amazing. A big habit.
I remember we were worried about you.
Yeah.
You know.
The Durst told me very subtly, the Durst told me they were picking out black clothing.
Really?
Yeah. That was their way of saying, you're going to die.
Oh, boy. Oh, my. Oh, jeez. Well, you know.
Have you spoken to Debbie at all?
I'm speaking to Debbie on Thursday for her to do a thing on this show to tell us how Will's doing. Yeah. It seems to be going pretty slow, you know.
He had a major stroke.
Yeah, but part of the problem is, too, that this stroke happened just prior to last October. So then comes COVID, and everything shuts down. Therapy, all of that, you know. And he's just lying in the hospital, you know, trying to.
He's been, it's just about a year that he's been either in a hospital or a rehab. I think he's in a rehab now, isn't he?
He's in rehab, and it seems to be going slow. She says we got a hand moving, and his leg is starting to move slightly, you know. And you're going, it's been a year. I didn't realize it. It's been a year.
Right.
And you know, I miss him. He used to do the show every couple of weeks, you know, and
nicest guy on the planet.
Come to New York and we'd hang out. Oh, lovely. He and Debbie. I mean, just great people, you know.
They're the patriarchs and matriarchs of the comedy scene in San Francisco.
Yes, yeah.
You know?
So, you know, when I heard that happen to him, what happened was, how I found out about it was we were supposed to do a call together on Skype. And so I would call him on Skype, and he wasn't answering. So I called his phone to say, where are you? And guess what? Debbie answers the phone and says,
it tells you what's going on.
Will had a stroke. And I went, "Jeez Almighty!" You know, just I didn't know what to say.
Right.
You know,
what can you say? What can you say? You can't say anything.
Yeah, I was so devastated to hear it. You
and
know?
she's very optimistic. I mean, she's
in there working her ass off for him.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know, they've been a couple as long as we've known them. You know.
Oh yeah.
And that's
I mean,
a long
they've been a
time.
couple since at least '81. When I met them in San Francisco, they were already a couple.
Yeah. But anyway, hey, listen, we've run out of time again. My, how time flies when you're talking about heroin. It should move by. It should move by more slowly, but it doesn't.
Right.
Hey, let's do this again in a couple of weeks, okay?
Yeah, you got a deal, my friend.
All right. Talk to you
Thanks
later.
for listening. Thanks for watching, folks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Now in our 6th year, this is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network. Talk like you've never heard it before.
And here we go again, folks. This whole thing we do here, which is, I don't know, sometimes I wonder, is anybody really listening? You know, if there was a tree in the forest and there was nobody there to hear it, would there be a sound? And the answer to that is probably not. And if there was a show on the internet, a podcast, and nobody listened to it, would there be a show? I don't think so. You know. But anyway, it is time for us. Let me turn on my fan up there so I get a little air in here so I don't get super drowsy or anything. And let me see here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the only person that's waiting on our Zoom panel. And there he is. And hello to Charlie Wallace. Hello, Charles. Oh, here comes Brian Neary, too. Yeah, how's it? I always ask you this every night. How's it going in Texas?
It's getting worse.
It ain't getting any better. It actually, a good example. What is that that bar at the bottom of your screen, Brian?
I have no idea. I was having a hard time getting on already.
Oh, really? There it goes. What was that?
No idea.
Have no idea. Oh, okay. But anyway, so in Texas, the death rate's gone up. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, in fact, we're getting ready. We're almost caught up with California. So pretty soon we're going to be the #1 state for COVID cases.
Including and beating New York out, I guess. I think.
Well, we got twice as many cases as New York's had.
Wow.
So we long since passed in cases. It's just we're getting ready. You're the only ones ahead of us in deaths.
Yeah, did you hear that slime bag, Robert, tonight, Trump, with his little thing about New York is like, the capital of the country, but it really isn't anymore. It is in deaths, but we got hit with it before anybody else, and we didn't know how to take care of it or anything else. We had to test it out on our population, and that made it a little easier for the rest of the country, you know. But geez, and then you got the one mailbox deal.
Yeah.
You know, in all of Harris County, I used to live in Houston. Harris County is so big that the airport, which is it in Harris County, the airport? It was Sam Houston, and now it's George Bush Airport, right?
Used to. George Bush is the international airport that's north of Houston. Yeah.
Yeah.
It might be actually outside of Harris County.
Really outside of Harris County, because you have to drive 75 miles to get to the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's like they won't let you vote and they won't let you get out.
Well, with that one box, there are people that probably have 100-mile round trip to get to that one box.
Well, there was somebody that said they drove 35 miles to get to the box, and then they had to wait there for a while because everybody had to be checked.
You had to check their IDs.
Yep. So, I mean, they really are, talk about voter suppression. I mean.
But they may have screwed up now because they're blowing all the records out of the water as far as voter turnout.
We've had something like, what did I hear? 40,000 votes, 40 million votes so far, something like that. I don't know, some amazing amount of voting.
We've had 2 million votes in Texas in 2 days.
Oh, wow. And I would venture to say that a good deal of those are Democrats. People voting.
Especially got to wait in line 3 hours.
Yeah, voting against Trump because I don't know that the Republicans are that gung ho. You know.
Yeah.
They don't want to wait in lines. You know. They want to go to the head of the line. But anybody see the debate? Not the debate. The rebate.
The town hall rebate.
Masturbate.
The masturbate. Good one, Robert. Yeah.
Not me.
Yeah.
I watched the part. You know, frankly, Alex.
Yeah.
I was disappointed for you. As president of Antifa, I feel strongly that you should have been given a town hall of your very own.
That's correct.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Does he even know I'm the head of Antifa?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Does he even know what Antifa is?
Probably not.
No.
You know, I mean, he doesn't know. What did he say? He didn't know what QAnon was.
Right.
He didn't know what QAnon was. Now, I find that a little hard to grok in my head because the old term. To grok in my head because he knows what Antifa is, and it doesn't exist.
Right.
But he doesn't know what QAnon is, which exists.
It really exists.
You know, where does this guy pay attention to the news?
QAnon are those things you put in your ear, right, with the cotton on them?
Right. And then he said, the part I liked was, he says, well, you know, anybody that's against molesting children can't be all bad. Huh?
Yeah.
Well, it all depends on how they're defending it, you know, and what they're saying about it.
And Fauci became a Democrat tonight.
Did he really?
What?
Yes.
Wow.
He actually said that Fauci's a Democrat.
Oh,
He said that?
Trump said that.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
I must have been out getting water or something.
My favorite was 85% of people that get coronavirus wore masks. I got a better statistic for them. 100% of people who get coronavirus once drank water. So it stands to reason.
Yeah. 80. Well, he said 80% of people who wear masks get coronavirus.
Coronavirus.
That
85%.
That would mean that 80% of a huge portion of this country has coronavirus right now.
Yeah. So his numbers are full of shit.
Yeah, 100% of people that are at the Rose Garden that day, they didn't have masks.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I mean, this whole idea that to say
Trying
that
to make sense of him.
do masks cause coronavirus?
In Trump land.
You know,
he's a loser that's flailing away. He has nothing else, so he's just throwing shit at the wall like happened last night and hoping something stuck. You know, it's like, let me try this, let me throw that out there, let me put this, you know, there's no coherent strategy.
Yeah, but did you notice as you watched it, the women in back of him? Did you notice that at all? It was like, that's all I could watch. There was this black woman in the back and another black woman in the front, and then a white woman kind of center, right in back of him. And they're all, when he's saying stuff, going,
I hope they got 6 figures paid.
yeah, I mean, they were like nodding all the time, like, oh, yeah. And I'm thinking, did he get them placed there so they would look like somebody was agreeing with him?
A lot of actors out of work, so.
Yeah.
Did you see the same black guy there? Was that same black guy there?
I don't think so.
I didn't see him there, but I saw one guy who pumped his fist when they said people who want you out of office. You know. Now, my question is, how bad was Savannah Guthrie?
She was pretty shitty.
She was bad.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that was just a really bad job. She was so, I think maybe she didn't get picked to do the actual debates. So she was probably trying to make up for that and thinking, oh, well, I'll ask all the hard questions. And, Trump is not going to answer a question he doesn't want to answer. Okay? That's why I don't usually interview politicians, for exactly that reason. I always dreaded when it was political season and they said, oh, do you want so-and-so on? Oh, my God. I bring them on. And I can throw all the hardball questions at a politician I want to, and he's spent years working on the ability to evade them.
Sure.
Okay? And to not answer them. And the one that always used to drive me crazy is you would ask them a question, direct question, like, do you believe that, will you accept the results of the election? That's a yes or no answer, isn't it?
Yep.
Well, not with him and not with politicians. What they do is they will say, well, is it? Well, blah, blah, blah. And then they will take you off the subject and they will go into about a 5-minute tirade on something that is on their agenda. And you get back to you've almost forgotten what the question was.
Politicians and beauty pageant contestants.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I want world peace.
I'm in favor of world peace.
I'm in favor of world peace. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And how big is your vagina? Anyway, I always hated those beauty pageants for a number of reasons, not the least of which was I was out there before any of these women were saying these things are just treating women like they're meat.
Yeah.
Okay. So it always bothered me. But as long as they were going to do it, why did they have a swimsuit competition? Why didn't they just have them come out naked? Who has the best pussy? You win. You're Miss America.
Her mother's sleeping. She would have got mad at you for that.
Why? She liked the Miss America pageant?
She watches that bullshit.
Oh, jeez.
I used to call in for the talent show for her dial the number. I'm telling you.
The talent show?
American Idol. Shit, I used to have to dial it in. Hurry up. We got to count our votes. Oh, come on, man.
Oh, really?
Wife watches those, and she always says, which one do you like? Which one do you like? And I don't fall into that trap.
Yeah.
No. I don't fall in that trap.
No.
Are there any?
Do I look fat in these jeans? Another question
Exactly.
you never answer, right?
Are there
No, sir.
I don't think there's a husband alive who hasn't found his wife to have a lapse of taste. And when she does, you wonder, why did I marry her? What, she likes American Idol and she wants to vote? But I have to admit, we watch America's Got Talent. But more than that, we watch Britain's Got Talent. That's the good one, Anyway, so then you also had Biden, and we went over to him occasionally just to see, when the commercials were on NBC. Now, what kind of thing like that do you put commercials on? But they did.
Yeah.
They did. And otherwise, I think Trump would have had to pay for the hour, which actually he should have done and then said, I don't want you to run any commercials. That's why I'm paying you, But anyway, I went over to Biden, and then I went back to Trump. Because let's face it, Trump's more entertaining. I mean, am I wrong about this? No, I don't want him as president. I don't like him. He's a horrible human being. He's the worst there ever was, blah, 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 blah. Still, when it's between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, Biden's very, I look at Biden and I go, yeah, he's very presidential. I'll vote for him. Now back to Trump to get a laugh and to yell at my TV set.
And you want to see, I think everybody's watching Trump to see a meltdown.
Yeah, it's a train wreck.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for him
Exactly.
to say.
Robert, what for you was the one moment that just drove you crazy tonight? Anything that he did? For me, it was that whole thing about COVID and,
Oh, the mask was bewildering again with him.
Yeah.
That whole, he was always trying to rationalize, you don't really need to wear the mask.
Well, somebody should tell him, listen, the question of wearing a mask, you should just say, I think everybody should wear a mask. Because it's not a political issue. You know, just get that out of the way. And if you say, hey, I think it's good if people wear masks, I don't wear them when I'm in public because I'm far enough away from people and so on. And I want to look good when I'm giving a speech and have people see my expressions. And you could excuse it that way. But no, he refuses to buy into the mask.
Yeah, he does. Either, do you think he's, I was going to ask you this, Alex. Do you think he's trying to act it to us, like sell it? And we'll buy it.
I don't know what he's. I don't know what he's thinking. You know, in the past, I think he believes his instincts suited him well. Okay, his instincts worked about how to get people to vote for you and so on. And he's so eaten up by that, he still thinks that he still has that same ability, but he doesn't. You know, he had it once because he had it once. You know, there's an old saying that I always loved. It said, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but not all of the people all of the time. But if you can do it just once, you get elected.
So he's trying it.
You know, and
you know, you made a good point, Alex. Me and my mom were watching it. And I'm going to say the African-American lady in the back, you're right. Was she placed there always?
Did you see her? Did you see?
She was shaking her head like, yeah, he's right. I'm like, look at this shit. My mother.
Well, there was also another one on the other side of her.
Is that they get a vote? Yeah, and the other one, what was she doing? I was really not noticing that one. I was noticing the one right behind him.
She was doing the same thing. And then they had a guy in the middle, and they went to a commercial break. And when they came back, the guy was gone and replaced by another woman who was bobbing her head up and down.
See, now I'm wondering what you said. Was she placed there?
I think so, yeah.
Of course.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because look, everything he's saying.
But in a way, it was kind of, the bad part about it was distracting.
Yeah, it was. She had the mask on going, yep. I was like, could she keep waving her head anymore? It was almost like she was his puppet. Like, it was like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little disconcerting, I thought. I didn't think she should have been. Actually, I didn't like the idea we saw people behind him.
Well,
I wouldn't have sat nobody behind him.
Yeah. By the way, how many more days do we have till the election?
19.
19? Oh, God.
I can't wait. Listen to
the longest 19 days of my life.
I'm excited for it, though.
Yeah, but it's not going to be over that night.
Alex, I'm worried he's going to win. I can't see how he's going to win. I can't see it.
Robert, does he have any? You're the odds maker on stuff. Does he have any chance of winning this?
Of course, he's got a puncher's chance. 13% via Nate Silver is a puncher's chance. There's a chance that he wins by a small margin in key states. There's a chance, but if you're looking to place money as a wager, you'd be a fool to bet on Trump right now.
Yeah. However, if he won, you'd get a lot of money.
Yeah, I was going to say the small. Yeah, put $10, you get a nice reward.
Yeah.
He needs an October surprise or basically Biden to drop dead.
Well, it's already the 15th of October, and the only surprise we had is he got COVID, which I'm beginning to go along with Charlie.
What's that?
I'm beginning to question whether he had COVID.
Because he couldn't answer that question. When was the last time
but what he started talking about it, and he said, well, I had a small temperature. Brian, you know about this a bit. Do you get a small temperature when you've got COVID?
I would say yes. I mean, that's why we're checking temperatures everywhere, you know?
But a small
what's small? What's a small temperature, though?
He said I had a slight temperature rise.
And she
so they sent him to Walter Reed, right?
Yeah, but with his weight and everything else, he could have a high temperature all the time.
Yeah,
it's true. He might have blood pressure.
But I mean,
a slow temperature is like 100.
Yeah. And he kept saying he had a little bit of the virus. Either you have it or you don't. There's measurements that we take for viral load, but that's not seen by people. That's just
and now a thing came out from the World Health Organization today that remdesivir doesn't work.
Doesn't?
What a shock!
The remdesivir doesn't work.
Yeah, and Alex, I think you were right. Johnson & Johnson is the one I said But Lilly, I think Lilly's the second company now that is pulling out of the vaccine because they're having problems. So that's two big companies this last week.
Well, I think one of the reasons they're pulling out or stopping testing for a while until they see what's going on is because that would go on almost any time. But this time we're paying too much attention to it, and they're being urged to rush things along.
I agree.
You know, and so therefore there's a different kind of impetus behind that sort of thing. But I mean,
it's also very expensive to do that testing.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure. The
But
company has
I
to,
didn't watch it.
has to send somebody out there, take all, make sure the
now, did anybody besides me watch Biden?
drugs are delivered.
No, I didn't go over to it. I was.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, yeah. I think if there were ratings tonight, the ratings for Trump I think will be higher than the ones for Biden, and I don't think Biden maybe in the second hour because Biden had 2 hours, Trump only had 1. And by the way, a lot of people are very mad at NBC that they scheduled him opposite Biden.
Yeah.
That they didn't say, no, you can't do that. You got to do it like Tuesday night and he'll do it Wednesday night, okay, or Thursday night. But not do it on the same night. And a lot of people just go, screw you, NBC. I mean, this shouldn't be a competition for who's going to get the most eyes. It should be just the individual people doing their thing. And by putting it opposite him, they created a television competition. You know, and you know tomorrow if Trump got the higher ratings, which I'm sure he probably did, he's going to be everywhere going, I got the highest ratings. This isn't the fucking Apprentice, okay?
Yeah.
You know?
That's same thing on Facebook. These guys are posting and saying, look how many followers Trump has. It's like 35 million, if that number's correct. I checked Biden's, he has 3.5 million. And they're saying, oh, there's no way he's going to lose. Look at all the followers. And I said, Facebook isn't the Electoral College. It's not we don't pick the president through Facebook.
Well, you heard the latest thing about Facebook and oh, here comes Patrick. Facebook and
Twitter
and Twitter.
Yeah.
We're stopping these people like the New York Post from putting up this thing about Biden's son, which they say may be a planted story. Okay. Hi, Patrick. How are you?
I'm dandy.
You're dandy. No, but I don't know if you're all familiar with the story, but there's a story that the New York Post printed up that came from Rudy Giuliani about, what was it, Hunter Biden's laptop. And there was some stuff on his laptop, including him with a crack pipe. Okay.
Oh, sleeping. Yeah.
Sleeping with a crack pipe, which could have been Photoshop. And everybody says, this isn't for real, you know, and it's claiming that Hunter had memos from the guy at Burisma saying, I'd like to meet your father, you know. And they decided that they were not going to print it, that they were, Facebook and Twitter are very careful now, because they don't want any kind of hacking by the Russians or, you know, false news going out there. So they did, you know, made sure those didn't go out there. And so now they're saying, well, now they're censoring the New York Post. Well, the New York Post is, you know, who owns it? Murdoch, you know, and it's I don't know.
Ted Cruz did a video saying they want him. They want both of them, you know, Facebook and Twitter, to answer these questions, why they didn't post that. And
you know, I don't know. And Patrick, you might agree or disagree with me on this, but you know, these are private companies and they can do whatever they goddamn please. You'd agree with me on that, right, Patrick? I figured
Absolutely.
You're political.
Yeah.
So who are you to say, oh, we're going to hold a federal investigation into, you know, why they? Of course, they can censor anything they want to that doesn't meet up to their standards. Okay, I can't do things here on YouTube. A lot of things on YouTube, and if I did them, YouTube would probably say, "You're not. That's not going on tonight," you know. And they have every right to. They own the store. I don't have to agree with it, and we can all hate them for it, and we can all say, I'm never going to look at Facebook again, or I'm going to boycott Twitter. But who's to tell them what they can allow and not allow? Because they got heat the last time when the Russians were posting stuff on Facebook and Twitter. And so they're ultra sensitive to it now.
Let them shut down Twitter for a month. What's Trump going to do?
Yeah, well, you know, they've actually taken off Trump stuff. It was stuff. Really? It was stuff about COVID, and they said it was totally untrue and misleading, and they wouldn't allow that with anybody who was posting on Twitter.
They kicked me off just because I called what's her face a fat Russian hoe, which she is.
Which one? Well, who's that?
That fat bullshit bitch that's running around with Trump Jr.
What's her name?
Yeah, well, yeah, she just publishes, Russian disinformation,
Yeah.
They kicked me off. I can't get back on.
I can't remember her name. Why is she so damn hot?
Ulophile or something like that.
Why is she so damn hot? I hate when that happens. I hate it.
Well, I don't think she's hot. I think she's like a big fat ass.
Well, would you throw her out of bed?
Probably not.
Yeah, okay, that's the standard.
That ain't saying much.
That's the standard.
That's altogether different.
Yeah.
Did they ask you for a reason or any proof of that, or they just cut you off?
Yeah, no, they would. I protested it, and they just ignored me. I didn't hear anything back.
So you can't go back on Twitter?
No, I can't. I tried to log back on. I actually even tried to create a different name account, and they wouldn't let me do that either. Somehow they know who.
You would create a different name? I hardly think so.
He actually used the real name.
I don't know.
Did you watch any of the election stuff tonight? Either Patrick, either Biden or Trump? No. Okay.
No, I recorded it. I'll catch it tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the most entertaining one was Trump. Biden's not in. He's not a TV personality.
He's okay. He's like, somebody said on Twitter. I saw that it said it was like Mr. Rogers versus the crazy uncle in the closet.
Well, what did they say? Somebody said the last debate looked like just two old men fighting with each other.
Yeah.
What I would have loved to have done is make up a Trump puppet and a Biden puppet and put them in a balcony like in the Muppet Show.
I thought it would have been cool if all the advertisements for both town halls would have been geared to people like 80 years old, like hemorrhoid cream, memory medicines, that sort of thing.
Well, when you watch the 6:30 news, nothing but stuff about doctor stuff, very, very, very few ads that don't have to do with medical stuff. And now almost every ad is for, it's the end of the year, so it's for, insurance. And this is where you get your insurance. Here's how you get it, and, so on and so forth.
I broke my doctor's balls one time. I came in with a sheet of paper about yay long and said, I'm here to ask if Prevagen, Gilardi, is right for me. And after about 6 names, he was about to throw me out on my ass.
Ask your doctor if Prevagen is right for you.
Yeah, they all say the same thing. Well, no doctor's going to listen to that shit.
By the way, my wife was having problems with remembering things. And so she went to a doctor, and they gave her a bunch of tests, and they even did an MRI on her brain, and they said, you passed with flying colors. You're just getting old, and that's why you're forgetting stuff. And she said, well, would that Prevagen stuff help me?
I see that commercial.
And the guy said to her, doctor said to her, that's like eating cereal. He said, cereal, it'll taste good, okay, but, forget it. It doesn't do a damn thing. And I want to know how jellyfish have a good memory. I don't know if they have a good memory.
That I don't know.
They never show up at class reunions, I notice.
No, they can't remember when they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so anyway, it just, I'll just be glad when the 19 days are over. I'm so tired and worn out. And Patrick, because you kind of begged out of here a little bit, okay? And so that means you kind of beg out of what? Are you paying attention to all this stuff? Or
Not any more than I used to. I mean, the reason I haven't been on it, I've had a few extra projects that I was thrown my way. So,
yeah.
But I mean, I'm paying attention the same as I have. None of this gets me overly excited one way or the other. I mean, what's going to be is going to be. And one of my great what do I want to call it? Enjoyments, I guess, of the last several days.
Mm-hmm.
And surely Charlie had been not a point of it, but he's seen some of my postings.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely wonderful how the Democrats have been rolling themselves into a lather over Amy Coney Barrett and the possibility, or I guess the inevitability, of her becoming a Supreme Court justice. And I think it's great watching them fall over themselves and get all, my God, Roe is going to be gone and all of this, because at the same time, I keep reading on Facebook from many of the same people that Biden is ahead by 14 points. He's going to clean Trump clock. There's going to be no way Trump gets reelected. So what are you worried about Amy Coney Barrett for? I mean, Joe can pack the court with 2 or 3 more judges that are liberal, and then her opinion doesn't matter. Chill out, people. Relax.
Charlie, I'm going to go to you next. I just want to say something to Patrick about that. The only thing that bothered me about those hearings was, why did they hold them anyway? They know how it's going to come out. It's like, somebody told you how the movie ends, so why go to it? I mean, this was just for all these people to get up and posture, I mean, I wish it were a real hearing in which some minds would be changed or whatever. But we know the Republicans are voting for her and the Democrats aren't, and that's the way it is. So why go through all of this? Charlie?
Yeah, the reason that the Democrats are upset with her is because she's so far right-wing. She's so far biased. She ignores what the law actually says and does what the Republican Party wants her to do. And she's only 48 years old, so she's going to be there for like 4 decades.
Yeah.
So that's why
unless she gets a real job, Yes, John.
I thought the hearings were pretty valuable because, like that Sheldon Whitehouse, when he started talking about where all that, money has come from, to get all these right-wing judges on the court. And when he started talking about like the history in the last 5 years of how the Republicans have completely, stolen the judiciary system from the Democrats, and they've packed the courts with, right wingers all the way. I mean, not just the Supreme Court. I mean, all the lower courts and stuff. And, and it's, and it's gonna come back. I think it's gonna come back and bite the Republicans big time.
Well, again, you know, if Biden wants to, he can add another 2 positions to the court and even the whole thing out. Okay.
Yeah.
There's no laws to how many people you have to have on the Supreme Court. But you know, when they were arguing about what Biden might do, and they said, well, he wants to pack the court. Well, what have they just done?
Yeah.
You know, they've packed the court. That court is so packed that I hope we do add 2 people just to kind of just even things out. Maybe so there's somebody in there, it could be a swing vote. There isn't even a swing vote there. Maybe John Roberts is the closest thing we have to a swing vote. Yes, Charlie.
I think they ought to, once the Democrats get in there, they ought to pass a law or even if it's a constitutional amendment that the Senate has to have a certain amount of time, like 2 months, that they get to decide whether or not they want to support the nomination that the president makes. And if they don't do anything like McConnell did, he sat on those federal judges for 2 fucking years. He wouldn't.
Yeah, they made a big deal out of the fact Trump did. Well, Obama didn't appoint judges when he could have. Well, he tried to, but McConnell was. So
they ought to automatically go in if they don't do anything for 2 months. That's if you don't say no in 2 months, then that's a yes.
Well, that, and I think that the Supreme Court the justices should be able to hold, the suggestion has been hold their position for 18 years. And in that 18-year cycle, each president has the ability to appoint 2 new justices, okay, in that period of time. And then that would make it, I think, at least, I mean, we are stuck with Amy Coney Barrett for the next, you know, let's say if she lives to be as old as, what's her name? As RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's going to be there for what? 40 years?
40 years, yeah.
A lot longer before we're around.
Exactly. Patrick?
I will say one benefit to the hearing have been that I've been able to sit with a boner for the last 3 days watching.
Really? So, you find her hot?
Oh, I you know what? Any intellectual woman who has some good look to them, I'm there. I don't care if they're liberal or conservative, but they got to be sharp. And you got to be good looking, and I'll just sit there at attention.
There's something about her. And now you see here's what happens on this program, folks. I want you to realize this, and it's very important for you to understand it. When we get down to the very bottom of it, we start discussing like Amy Coney Barrett and that whole thing based upon whether we do her or not. Yeah. And that is not the correct thing to do in this day and age with the Me Too movement and everything. So watch yourself, Patrick. But my feeling is there is no way little Alex would enter that thing. Okay? And the reason is I find her completely unattractive. And it's you know, she has every reason to be attractive. She's not bad looking. I would imagine after 5 kids, probably everything goes south when she takes her clothes off. But the point is that for us guys in this group, all of a sudden it comes down to that. And you're sitting there telling me you're getting a boner watching the hearings, and I find that admirable. But I don't agree with you because I find that I couldn't possibly. In fact, what I would do is if I ran a company that made porn films and I was like having a casting call for guys, and I wanted to make sure they could get it up under any circumstances, I'd put up a picture of Amy Coney Barrett and have them jerk off to her. And if they could have an erection and have an orgasm, they got the job. Yeah.
That's definitely going to get defunded now.
What?
You're definitely going to get defunded.
You mean demonetized?
Demonetized.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, but I mean, it's just amazing that it does come down to that with you, doesn't it, Patrick? You know, you want her confirmed because you want to be able to see her lovely visage for the next 40 years.
Well, you never see Supreme Court. You know who's hot is AOC's pretty hot.
Oh, yeah. AOC, yeah. You don't find AOC hot, do you, Patrick?
No, I mean, there's another one. The politic we would have to not talk politics. Just get down to business.
But AOC.
As soon as she would talk politics, no, I could probably still finish, but it would, you know, let's put it this way: we wouldn't go for dessert then, or out to dinner.
Okay, so you, in other words, you just want the boff, and then you're out of there. Yeah, yeah. No, AOC is I think probably one of the most attractive congresswomen we have in the Senate, in the Congress, not in the Senate.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, if we're talking about women, I think Biden's running mate is pretty hot.
Yeah.
You know.
I like the senator from Arizona.
Oh, Kirsten Sinema. Yeah.
She's hot. Yeah.
Is she the one that's going to be voted out now, or?
No, that's McSally.
Oh, McSally.
Yeah.
She's not hot.
Yeah. McSally's up against the astronaut, right?
Yeah.
She's
gone.
And she never was elected anyway. She's the one that lost to Sinema.
Yeah, no.
Arizona's already voted her down once.
She got appointed to take McCain.
When McCain died, yeah. Okay, all right. So she doesn't even really have the upper hand, so to speak.
No.
Yeah. What's his name? I can't remember. And he's got a twin brother.
Kelly.
What?
Mark Kelly.
Mark Kelly is the
and he has a brother who's also an astronaut. They're twins.
Yeah.
They're
twin
twins.
brother,
In fact, didn't both of them go up together on the space station?
Oh.
Or no, one of them did. Right. But anyway, so anyway, we've had a good political discussion here. It certainly has devolved.
Very intellectual.
Very intellectual. Let me ask you this, Patrick. Let's say you had a really hot woman who was a Democrat running for president. What would you vote for her based on the fact that she gives you a Woody?
I wouldn't vote for her based on that. I mean, I may vote for her based on her political stances. I mean, I wouldn't eliminate her just because she's a Democrat, but I wouldn't vote for her just because of looks.
Yeah.
The only one that I would do that for would be Tulsi Gabbard.
Really?
Yeah, but not for president. Just, my idea was I was going to write her in, but I ended up voting Libertarian.
Okay.
Because I could not figure out who would be a good vice president for Tulsi, and you have to write in a president and vice president. And I just figured, you'd have to put a gun to my head to get me to vote for Biden. I'm not a fan of Trump, so I'll just go Libertarian, and then that way I haven't given up my right to bitch once the election done.
Good. But let me ask you this, though. Who is the Libertarian candidate?
Joe Jorgensen or something.
See, you don't even know.
It's like when Gary Johnson ran. I mean, it really didn't matter.
By the way, I had Gary Johnson on my show. You may remember it. Nicest guy. Really a great guy. I really enjoyed him. I enjoyed him because he was no nonsense. He answered any question I would ask. I was talking earlier about politicians coming on the show and never answering the question that you ask them. They always look like they're listening to the question, and then they answer another question, one they want to answer. He was very direct. Anything I would ask him, I said, I don't like your politics particularly. He said, but you seem very honest, and he really was. Who was the wrestler? Jesse Ventura. I like Jesse, but he was a terrible governor, and I didn't like his politics. But he was straightforward. You know, I could get an answer out of him. Yes, Robert.
Gary Johnson was the guy in 2016 who did the town hall, and they asked him a question about Aleppo. And
yes.
He had no idea what Aleppo was. And I was so dying to take part and tell him Aleppo was the Marx brother that didn't appear in any of the movies.
I always, when people said Aleppo, I'd say, is that the sixth Marx brother?
Yeah, right.
You know, there were 5 Marx brothers. You know that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, there was Chico. There was Harpo.
Yeah.
There was Groucho.
Yeah.
There was Zeppo.
Yeah.
And
Gummo.
then there was Gummo.
Hmm.
Yeah. And Gummo left the act before they went to movies. And I think he went out to Hollywood and became a major agent.
Yeah, he
As a
did.
matter of fact. And then I think Zeppo followed him into the agent business and became the husband of Barbara Marx, who, when Zeppo died, married Frank Sinatra. Hey, how do I know this stuff, huh? Huh? Let's hear it for
real
me.
brothers?
What?
What did you eat for dinner?
Were they all real brothers?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Same mother.
Oh, yeah,
and
they were all
father.
real brothers. Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know that.
No, you know, of course, you can be a little bothered by that because a lot of times people call themselves brothers in show business and they're really not related. You know.
Yeah. Well, the Ramones, the Ramones weren't related.
There was Joey Ramone. I don't think, and it was Mark
But
Ramone.
was it a real brother?
No.
Yeah, I think there was one real brother in that group, but the rest of them were also they all had the last name Ramone.
Yeah.
You know. But no, I think there were. It was Joey,
Joey,
and
Marky.
I'm trying to remember. I think it might have been Marky. It was the
Johnny
Johnny
was a real right wing nut, I think.
Johnny
He is.
Ramone.
He's the only one still alive, right?
No, Johnny's gone.
I think so.
Are they all
I
dead?
think the only one alive is the second.
Well,
is
I don't
the
know
second
if
brother.
you know this, but you remember that during the Beatle era, Murray the K was known as the 5th Beatle. Right? You remember that, Robert?
Sure.
Well, and this was official from the Ramones. I was the 5th Ramone.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, because and I love Joey. I mean, he was the best.
And the president of Antifa. You are.
And
one
I'm
of
the president of Antifa. By the way, Robert, are you coming to the meeting next week?
I'll be there.
Okay,
The
good.
donuts, can I get invited?
Be sure to bring your Uzi with you. I want to see.
No. If it involves guns, I ain't going.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
then you don't have to bring your gun.
Big guns, BB guns.
You know,
Bring your membership card.
we have to hold some kind of meeting to
Yeah.
fake Trump out and make him actually think this
He
organization
said that today.
exists.
Why don't he said, why don't they ask him about Antifa?
They don't ask about Antifa because Antifa doesn't exist. Antifa is a philosophy which goes back to the 1800s, okay?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's not an organization. It is simply being anti-fascist. And it was a bunch of people who were anti-fascist, and then throughout the years, it's been anybody who considers themselves to be anti-fascist. But there is no Antifa. They don't get together and say, well, we better get to Portland right now. There's a riot going on, you know. Yes, John.
Did you see what Trump said at, I think it was at the rally yesterday when he was talking about that Antifa guy that the cops shot? It turned out that the cops didn't even try to, they didn't even try to arrest him. They just shot him on the spot.
Yeah.
And Trump said, yeah, they didn't want to arrest him, so we just took care of him. I mean, the president saying that shit?
Oh my God.
That's like just authorizing murder.
John Gotti.
Well, I said something earlier, and I was agreeing somewhat with Charlie. I just, after he described his fight with COVID tonight, I began to think about Charlie saying, I think he was faking it, that it didn't really exist. And when he talked about it, he didn't talk about it like, did you watch it, Brian? Did you watch him during this period of time in the interview? when he talked about getting COVID? Did
He never went into detail.
Did he appear to you that he actually had COVID?
Like I said, off the balcony, he looked like he was having a hard time breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then after that, he was on some of the rallies already, and he was going to full force.
Do you come back that fast from COVID? From what I'm told, COVID sometimes keeps lingering for months.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
high
Especially when
fevers.
you're an older person.
Yeah, but he didn't have a high. He said he
drained.
didn't have a high fever. He said he had a very low fever, and it just, yeah. But then I'm thinking, if he did it because he wanted to get some kind of sympathy for the election or whatever, it didn't work, you know. And then poor Melania had it, and the kid had it. Okay, or maybe that's a fake too. I don't know. What?
Did she have it, or did she just have it as a medication?
No, she said she had she was running a high fever, and that she had headaches and feeling pain in her bodily aches and pains and so on, all the normal flu stuff, and that Barron also got it, but he didn't have any effects of it. Because she said he's young and he's strong and he's active, and so.
Wouldn't know it to look at him.
Actually, we haven't seen pictures of him lately. We remember the pictures of him when he was smaller. He's kind of a tall teenager now.
Yeah, he's
Very tall.
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of believed what she was saying, but it was just listening to him tonight. I said that doesn't sound like somebody with COVID.
Yeah, it seems like a really quick, bizarre. Recovery.
I mean, I had a friend in the very beginning who thinks he had COVID, and it lingered for about 3 weeks. He was running a temperature every day. It didn't get horrible, but he had aches and pains and didn't feel good for 2-3 weeks. See, his
personality of going to the hospital, that's what I don't get, because he's supposed to be a strong guy and his tough attitude. That's where I had a hard time believing, because why would he go to the hospital then?
Well, it could be his doctors didn't want to take any chances. But the thing we were saying last night that I wondered about was she didn't go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, why would they leave the first lady home?
And somebody supposedly asked the doctors about this, and they said, well, yeah, she's not the president.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was a good answer, right?
Yeah.
That's not a good answer.
No sense.
She could die. We could sacrifice her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you've looked at Trump's history of marriage, yes, she is disposable.
I mean, think about it. That's like my dad getting sick and my mom, and they're taking my dad out and saying, well, man, see you later. Big Dad, where you going? Mommy's sick. Well, I got to get treated first. Fuck her. It's almost like I don't buy it. I think Charlie's right.
Remember Seinfeld, George Costanza, when he pushed the old lady out of the way on the house on fire?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, why would you leave? Wouldn't you just take her there?
But do you remember what they said to George Costanza when he was in the ambulance? How do you live with yourself?
Based on 2020, I think COVID in 2 weeks will come out with a tell-all book about the Trump family.
I got to tell you what I'm sick of with the COVID. Today, I decided I would watch a webinar with my union about why they've had to get rid of the old medical plan, and are going with the new medical plan, which is going to cost me about 4 to 5 times as much as I'm paying now for this medical plan. Okay? And their excuse was, well, the cost was going up, and the costs were going up because of medical costs were going up, and then COVID hit. I'm sick of everybody explaining their incompetence by saying, hey, COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, what? And then they say, it was a matter of saving the union and the medical plan. And I wrote to them, saving the union? What about saving the members of the union? Some of which may die because they can't afford health insurance now.
And isn't that what that's for? And insurance, it's like insurance saying, oh, well, COVID's hit, so we're not going to cover anybody anymore because it's going to cost us money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm tired of what I call the COVID excuse. Oh, we haven't been answering the phones fast enough because, COVID. Well, I don't think COVID is preventing you from putting more people at home online to answer the phones for your company. In fact, it may be easier than having them come into work and have to have the real estate for them to sit at in order to do it. But it's what I call the COVID excuse for everything now. Oh, we can't do that, COVID. Well, yes, you can. COVID's a whole different problem. So anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Yes, Jeff.
I'm always a little pissed off at Biden talking about unions, and he is like unions come out of his mouth once a minute.
But what about unions?
Well, I just think he always talks about it, that he's really going to get a lot of union people who are going to get jobs.
Well,
and I'm wondering I don't think there's that many union jobs.
Well, the trouble is we don't have, and I imagine Patrick might disagree with me on this, but I don't think we have enough unions anymore. Used to be, this was very much a unionized country. And now all those jobs which used to be unionized aren't unionized at all. And what the unions did was they actually set the wages for all the people who weren't union, just by their own example and by setting the bar. And that's why the unions always got very pissed that people wouldn't join the unions because, hey, you wouldn't be getting what you're getting at your job if we didn't exist. So all that has changed in America. When I was growing up as a kid, my father was a member of the Musicians Union, gung-ho about the union. Imagine a guy who plays a fiddle, is gung-ho about the union. And I was brought up as a union kid, So when I had a chance to join a union, first the IBEW, the Electrical Workers Union, and then later on the AFTRA, I looked at that as a badge of having come of age in my business, was being able to join the union and holding a job that So I was always big on unions. But I got to tell you, mine is useless. It's really useless. And I've always felt they were useless, but I still, for all these years, have paid my dues every quarter. Not so I would get anything out of them, because I didn't get anything out of them. I was able to get my own price because I was able to negotiate my own terms with radio stations. And those radio stations weren't necessarily unionized. But I stayed a member of the union out of respect basically to my father, who was a big union guy. And so when I have something like this union suddenly abandoning all the seniors, 1,200 seniors, 12,000 seniors are going to have to find a place to go get insurance and to pay for it. And to do something equal to what we had before will cost each and every one of us at least $400 to $500 a month. And that's, that's uncalled for. I mean, you watch out for your members. That's all I'm saying. So I've made my piece here. Anybody? Anybody here belong to a union at one time or another?
I do.
You do? What do you belong to?
I did.
It's an usher union or theater workers union.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's pretty good, but
what's the logo for the union? A flashlight?
No, it's theater workers. It's the same union that the stage workers.
Oh, you mean IATSE?
I guess, yeah.
My mother was used to work at the IATSE office in San Francisco and was the secretary there.
Yeah. We they do the ushers and the you know, the guys that load the stuff into the theaters, all that crap.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's okay. I mean,
Those guys need to have a union.
yeah.
You know, you don't have negotiating power. So it's
But there's all the rock and roll places are non-union, like the Warfield.
Mhm.
That's non-union. But like the theaters where they do like Broadway stuff, that's union.
But you see, that's what's changed, though. My father, towards the end of his life, became a worked for the musicians union as a, I'm trying to remember what the term was, but he went out. He was a representative, and he would go out and they'd say, "Okay, tonight you're going to go to the opera house and you're going to go check and make sure the orchestra is being well taken care of." So he did that, and in those days, they actually had a union for all the rock places, like the Matrix and the Fillmore and so on. They were all unionized. And he would go out, and what they did with my father, because he was the new guy on the block, they made him be the representative for all the rock venues. And so he had to go out and deal with the rock venues, and he said he loved it. He just loved what these kids were doing. He said they're really playing some interesting music and so on. And one day there was this one musician who wanted to join the union. But in order to join the union in those days, the musicians union, you had to go sit before a group of other musicians and play your instrument to prove you could play your instrument and read music. Okay? Because, they wanted to say, hey, we're sending a guy out to play music at your gig, and he's qualified by the union. And he had this one musician who's a guitar player, he said was just terrific. And he took him down to the musicians union, and they said, okay, well, can you read music? And my father jumped in and said, no, he can't. He never learned how to read music. But why don't you just listen to him play? And he played. And the musicians there said, this kid's terrific. He said, we don't care if he doesn't read music. We'll make him a member of the union. That was Steve Miller.
Wow.
And when my father died, my mother got a note from Steve Miller saying, I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for your husband, and how he fought for me with the musicians union. So, unions have changed. And I don't know how many of those musicians today are members of the musicians union. But anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Yes, Robert.
I belong to a union, but we couldn't call it a union. Teachers are not, by law, permitted to be parts of a union. Now, you hear National Education Association, but notice the word association. You can belong to the AFT, which is the American Federation of Teachers, but at no point are we permitted to use the term union. Yeah, that's okay. Because by law, we're not allowed to, it was to keep us from the ability to strike.
Wow.
And now, so mind you, teachers did strike just the same, but by virtue of calling a strike, they were already in violation of law.
So is that true today as well?
I believe it still is, yeah.
Yeah.
And I got involved with...
police have a union.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
Firemen have a union.
You got to understand that teachers kind of got behind, like the short end of the stick in a lot of cases. And frankly, this is going to sound like it's chauvinistic, but for years and years and years, teaching was a female-dominated profession.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And as a result, there was little consideration given to increasing their pay level and so on and so forth, because the general overall feeling was that they weren't making the chief income in a household.
They weren't the breadwinner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, with all due respect to my female colleagues, in a lot of cases that was true. So they weren't quite as aggressive in many cases about pursuing, all that they felt that they were worth. And so as a result, they got off to a bad start pay-wise. And now all these years, trying to catch up, it hasn't worked, frankly.
Now, can I tell you something? The National Education Association I made money from them. What I did, I got a job doing voice work, narrating their slideshow presentations of things like you and your health plan. Okay. And I would read these pages and pages of you and your health plan for the NEA. And I did about 5 or 10 of these things, if I remember correctly. And then I used to get paid for them. So that was my...
I'm sorry. The thing that used to bother us no end was there were in my community 2 job actions. We couldn't call them strikes, but they were strikes. And it was because negotiations had stalled. What would happen invariably is that the principal in your building would give you a hard time about not reporting to work. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, privately, your principal was telling you, get all you can. Because if we got a 5% raise, obviously 5% of a lot more is a lot more.
Yeah.
Yet they couldn't belong to an association or union of their own. So while they were stepping on our necks about, you've been in violation of the law, they were secretly hoping we did a good job in negotiations because they benefited from it more than we did.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're not living in an age where unions are that powerful anymore, I mean, you still got the Teamsters. They still are, I think, pretty well going strong. I would imagine if Kevin were here, he could tell us about the Teamsters, But anybody here belong to a union at any time? No.
Oh, I did.
You say you did. Yeah, I asked this question earlier.
Yeah, I worked for Boeing, making missile bombs and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
How to kill
part people. Of the military-industrial complex, eh?
You better believe it.
Yeah.
And then I worked on the 747.
Really?
Yeah.
And how'd you wind up making parts for the heart?
Well, I kind of got sick of working on this quasi-military, boring, huge facility. It was just a factory, That's
Yeah.
And I ultimately got involved in medical stuff. And I was absolutely fascinated by doing that.
Yeah.
And I said, that's what I'm going to do.
And you've saved a lot of lives in the process.
Not bad.
Including your own.
Yeah.
Did they actually use one of your devices in you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. A little something I made
down. You got to use your own, right?
A little something I made down in the workshop today.
Well, I would even do some custom stuff that people said, nobody has these things. And I'm a surgeon and I know how to do this, but I can't find anybody who's willing to manufacture it.
Willing to manufacture it. Wow,
right.
That's
so there's a way that you can do it outside of the FDA system.
Well, there is the current theme song, and there's been a nice crowd tonight. We've gone everywhere with this discussion. And look, for the 7th inning stretch, it's John Larkin going there. Hey, thank you, Charlie. Appreciate it as always. Same to you, Brian. Mm-hmm. Is she asleep right now?
I don't know. I hope so.
Robert, thank you so much. Love having you here. Tony, always like having you here. Jeff Stein, inventor, scientist, and builder of bombs. Patrick Blazer.
Atomic bombs.
Thank you, Patrick. Love seeing your shiny countenance here. And John Larkin. Hey, everybody, give a big wave goodbye, and I'll give a big wave goodbye back. And we can say goodbye to each other. Yeah, there they go. That's the citizen panel for tonight. Listen, it's Jack Bishop next over most of the same Gabnet. He'll be taking your calls for a citizen panel using Skype, and the address is Gabnet Live. I'll be back again tomorrow night. Yeah, I imagine I will. And in the meantime, I'll see you at 10:30 Eastern Daylight Time, same station in life. And in the meantime, if you see her, tell her I love her. And by the way, be safe out there. And now more than ever, please wear a mask. Good night, everybody.